Samuel Solder very generously gave me a year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Titania versus Chatterfang, and if we can get a land off the top then it won't be bad thanks to the Sakura Tribe Elder, but probably won't, so we'll mulligan. Okay, we've got a very similar hand there. Yeah, we're already going to go down a card, so we'll just have to try it. I have these play sessions in which I can't get into lands, unfortunately, so we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed. And unfortunately see a Sol Ring from our opponent. And there is a Multani, so we'll try again. Lotus Cobra into a Fernant Catacombs. So our opponent uses the 3 mana to get down a Harrow, sacrificing a tap land will bring in 2 untapped lands. And Lotus Cobra continuing to barrel ahead of us. So now seeing Chatterfang with 2 mana held up, 3 cards in hand, down to 2 cards in hand, we see a Cryptolith Ripe. And we do get into the land that we needed, so Sakura Tribe Elder cracked on turn 2. Tireless Provisioner, and that's landfall, making a treasure and a mana most likely. Chatterfang has Forest Walk, so it swings straight through us. Alright, and another land for us, so I think we just have to ramp ahead and try and keep up with our opponent here. So Sky Shroud Claim for 2 forests. A hell of a lot of mana being tapped out here thanks to the Cryptolith Ripe. So our opponent continuing to do very, very well here. Awaken the Woods is going to make X 1/1s. That is 9 Dryad Arbors coming into play. Haven't actually seen the tokens for this yet, so yeah, all these have Summoning Sickness, so they won't be able to tap for mana. Obviously come in with a bunch of Squirrel tokens as well. And each of the Tireless Provisioner tokens will come in with Squirrel tokens as well. Only 1 card left in our opponent's hand though. Our opponent's got an absolute god tier hand here. A Skull Clamp to finish it off, so we'll be able to refill the hand. Doubling Season, Deep Forest Hermit, Raminap Excavator, Circle of Dreams Druid. So just for the fun of it here, we're not going to do anything in mono green against this unless we can get into an Urza or something, but our opponent probably gets us next turn. Play out the Augur of Autumn just for the sake of seeing what's on top of our library. Alright, and we do get into a land, so Wooded Foothills. Garrett Wildspeaker is going to be pretty useless to us, so we'll shuffle. And now a Regal Force on top, which is probably even worse. We'll just have to hold up the Constant Mists. Perilous Forays being activated. And again, just continuously going for Perilous Forays, so whenever that happens, landfall, Tireless Provisioner will make 2 treasure tokens, 2 squirrel tokens. Skull Clamp. Clamp again. Academy Manufactor. Our opponent probably crashes the game with this one. Perilous Forays. Scoot Swarm. Speaking of crashing the whole client, they've carried on with the Perilous Forays. It's yeah, not something that I want to keep repeating over and over again. Skull Clamp. Endric Sar. Clamp. Nested Shambler. Triggers the Endric Sar. Clamp. And doesn't have any more forest tokens left. There is a Dryad Arbor that he's fetched out at some point though. And obviously the Scoot Swarms can be clamped as well. Mana Crypt, 7 cards in hand. Obviously this can be clamped as well to remove the Anthem effect from all the squirrel tokens. Chatterfang killing off the Nested Shambler. So that buffed its power before it died, and there'll be a bunch of squirrels come into play with that. Alright, and there we go. That had our opponent crash the client, so actually not sure who would have won that one, because I would have just been able to do Constant Mists for, well, quite a while anyway. I mean, our opponent could have killed off the Titania so that we couldn't keep replaying the forest that we were sacrificing to that. So probably our opponent winning that one, but would have been interesting to see what cards we would have drawn into. Maybe could have got into an answer. I'm happy to concede to the Chatterfang though. Titania versus Hidetsugu this time, with some slow mana again. Yeah, not having the best of luck getting into any decent mana this game, even though there's a hell of a lot of ramp in this deck. Yeah, that's only slightly better. We'll keep it. We'll get rid of the Zerant Orb. I'm thinking the E-Witness will be able to get back a fetch if we need it, so yeah, we'll try that. Staff of Titania we draw into. Let's crack the Verdant Catacombs. Faithless Looting. Discarding to that Torch, Courier, and Greaves. Okay, there's a Commander's Plate, so for the sake of us using our mana efficiently, we'll just get down the Staff of Titania, hoping for a third land, and if we do get into one, I'll go E-Witness onto the Verdant Catacombs. Bitter Reunion for our opponent. And discarding to that, a Lava Spike. Alright, and we do get into an Ancient Tomb, that's excellent, so I'm actually going to skip the Eternal Witness. We'll go Oracle of Muldiah and attempt to get into another land. We do not, but we've got Sakura Tribe Elder, so probably Vernal Bloom next turn. Now an Expedite from our opponent, simply to draw a card. And just passing the turn at that with 3 mana held up. Okay, there is a Nature's Claim, so I think I'm fine for going for the Sakura Tribe Elder in order to shuffle. We'll try and get into a couple of lands off the top with the Oracle. And instead, ironically, just revealing an Azusa, so this is 3 to equip. So in that case, we will go for the Commander's Plate, and then let's swing in with the Oracle. Now we see Heartless Hidetsugu from our opponent. Alright, and now we see a land on top, so play a land and another land. And there's a Fabled Passage, so I feel fine going for the Vernal Bloom. That will make our lands tap for 2 mana, so now we can go Azusa. And that will allow us to play 2 more lands, so we've played 2 already. Fabled Passage, and there's a Lotus Cobra, which I'm not sure is going to be too handy now that we've pretty much played out our entire hand. So let's see about an E-Witness. We'll just grab back the Verdant Catacombs with that. Could have cracked the Fabled Passage actually. Yeah, we'll just do that now. Shuffling away the Lotus Cobra, there is a Blighted Woodland on top of our library now. So let's play that land off the top. And now an Exploration, which I'm not particularly bothered about either. So could crack this during the upkeep. So let's go for equipping up Oracle of Muldiah. And that jumps up to an 8/8, so we can swing in here. And that will make us a Forest Dryad land token. Our opponent leaves his Hidetsugu in play, and we'll have 6 cards at the beginning of the turn, goes down to 28 life. Our opponent bolts us directly, taking us down to 30. Then there is an Insult, so yeah, as usual, in Commander nowadays we lose to a combo. Heartless Hidetsugu deals damage equal to half of our life total, which is 15, but then it's doubled thanks to this. So that deals 30 to us. Up against Azusa this time, and yeah, I mean that's just a fistful of lands, so have to risk getting rid of that one. The Conduit of Worlds is nice. We do have card draw and ramp, so that's actually pretty good. Get rid of Heroic Intervention to that. Throw out a land and a Sol Ring on turn 1. We are on the play. Utopia Sprawl on turn 1 for our opponent, so we'll likely see Azusa next turn. We see a Zuran Orb, so drop the Forest into the Nature's Law. And then that takes us into the Sylvan Library, and yeah, don't think there's any harm in getting down the Zuran Orb here. Cavern of Souls, not too useful against a mono green deck. We do of course see the Azusa on turn 2 though, and then it is an Azusa copying one of our lands. That is the only land we see though, so 5 cards in hand and they don't have any other lands. Alright, so draw some additional cards to the Sylvan Library. There is a Nissa who shakes the world, which is one-sided mana doubling. Yeah, I mean we'll have to keep all of these just to clear them off the top of our library. So I think it makes complete sense to go after the Nissa here. Untap a forest, and then we'll swing through to our opponent because I'm going to tap this land down this turn I think. Our opponent does take the hit for 3 as you would expect. And then we'll dump 2 mana into X on this thing, simply because it will get us some more tokens into play, and they will each tap for 2 mana next turn, so it's a half decent ramp spell for us here. Horn of Greed. We should be able to consistently make lands, maybe not quite as quickly as our opponent will. A Turn Timber Serpentine and an Arch of Arazka, then a Tireless Tracker. And yeah, maybe our opponent was holding on to lands, or he's just getting some really good top decks here. It isn't Urza's Saga this time, so the Tireless Tracker will investigate, of course. Azusa not swinging in towards the Nissa. We see a Foundation Breaker, so probably goes onto the Horn of Greed. I would like to throw a land into play first, though. Then we see Rampaging Baloths and a land, so we keep all of these as well. So let's drop the Rampaging Baloths, play a forest, and that will trigger the Rampaging Baloths and the Horn of Greed, So we get a 4/4 beast. And there's a Sky Shroud claim for us as well, which is free effectively because we tap each of our forests down for 2 mana and then we'll get 2 untapped forests into play that tap for 4 mana. And this does trigger landfall, so then we might as well get down our commander using the Castle Garenbrig in order to do that. And then we'll tap down a forest. We can go for the Foundation Breaker, and we will be able to play this from the bin with Conduit of Worlds if we want to, so we can evoke it here and we'll destroy that Horn of Greed. And we'll look to mill 4 cards with the Titania because we might be able to hit a permanent. There is Roiling Regrowth, a land, and Ramunap. Nissa untaps a forest for us. And I doubt our opponent's going to block here, but I will trade out a forest for the Tireless Tracker, so let's just swing in here. And yeah, they do take the hit for 6, going down to 28. And that allows us to just play out the Conduit of Worlds. Noteworthy that Urza's Saga is an enchantment land, so it would probably be worth going for the Foundation Breaker next turn to blow this up. And before they get to go for the Tutor as well. Looks like they're near enough tapping out into something. That's a Woodland Bellower, so that's a good one. They'll be able to grab a Tutor with that. Okay, it's Courser of Crufix, revealing to us an Emrakul, the Promised End. Worldly Tutor going to shuffle it away and put something else on top. And now we see Dryad Arbor on top of our opponent's library. They play that straight away, revealing an Eye of Ugin. So investigate and gain a life. And then there's a Summoner's Pact underneath the Eye of Ugin. And then they play themselves a Dark Depths. Okay, there's an Ancient Tomb. Might still go for the Foundation Breaker here. Alright, Avenger of Zendikar is pretty good as well though. So maybe we just give them the Tutor with this. Yeah, we'll put the Ancient Tomb on top of our library because we're going to play a forest from the graveyard anyway, so pay 4 for the Harrow. And let's try and deal as much damage as possible here. We'll see if our opponent wants to trade the Woodland Bellower for anything. So it's 3 4/4 beasts and a couple of 6/6s, including our commander, which we can easily replay. Woodland Bellower goes in the way of the Rampaging Baloth, that's fine by me. Does have trample, so there's still a point of damage goes through to our opponent. They go down to 12. And now we can play ourselves an Avenger of Zendikar. Plenty of lands in play already, so get a decent number of plant tokens here. And that is, yeah, 9 plant tokens. So tap down a forest. We'll play the Harrow, sacrificing a forest. Then we'll shuffle the Ancient Tomb away, of course, and we'll get some more forests into play to make landfall. So we get plus counters twice on all of our plant tokens and a couple of 5/3s from the Titania. And then drop a forest in from the bin thanks to our commander, which triggers landfall again. And we'll tick up the Nissa again, making a forest token, and that is us done. We'll see what our opponent can do. If our opponent can fish out that Emrakul, then all he really has to do is take control of us during the next turn and go for the Zuran Orb, and he does have the Summoner's Pact available to him, don't forget. Fierce Empath on top of our opponent's library. Our opponent drew a card with the Clue token and reveals a Fierce Empath on top. We now see Expedition Map being cracked, so could go for the Dark Depths combo, but I don't think that's going to be fast enough. No, it is Gaia's Cradle he went for. So searching out and not yet playing the Gaia's Cradle. We see a crop rotation on top of our opponent's library. Gaia's Cradle into play. 4 cards in our opponent's hand, and it's noteworthy that they do have the City's Blessing. Our opponent gets down an Avenger of Zendikar of his own and makes 10 plant tokens to our 9. Now we see the Summoner's Pact. Oh, and it's only a green creature you can search out with this, so hence the reason our opponent didn't go for an Eldrazi with it. Another Tutor in Green Sun Zenith. That can only go for green creatures as well though. Our opponent searched out an Elvish Reclaimer with the Pact and plays that here. So it's time to see what we can do. We've got the ultimate on the Nissa, but I'm not entirely sure that can do too much of anything for us here. Life's Legacy might be able to. Okay, there's a Reclamation Sage, which I'm not all that bothered about. Don't think we can shuffle before then though, so might as well keep it in hand and draw new cards with the Life's Legacy. So we will tick down on the Nissa, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 forests remaining. So that will hopefully make up for the lack of double mana from the Planeswalker. We can always get it back out with the Conduit anyway. Point of doing this, of course, is to get landfall, so these plant tokens are going to be massive. And we do get a bunch of 5/3s from the Titania as well, of course. So now we've got some 11/12s. Let's sacrifice one of those, and we can draw a bunch of cards with the Life's Legacy. That gets us into some more ramp. Elemental Bond, Finale of Devastation is what we want here. So we'll throw out the Ancient Tomb. Got a mana floating. Avenger of Zendikar triggers again. And we'll put exactly 10 into X. We'll leave an untapped land just in case that's relevant. But we're looking to definitely go wide here. Alright, so it looks like our opponent's going AFK on us here, unfortunately. But I have to assume, unless our opponent has a fog effect or something, which I imagine he doesn't, we just go wide here with a bunch of +10/+10 hasty creatures. So hopefully you all enjoyed this revisit to Titania, Nature's Force. You can check out the deck via the link in the description below, and there is a link to Patreon as well if you are at all interested in supporting the channel monetarily. Huge thank you to those of you who do that. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.